So the lady that was sitting here is not a member yet, but Jodie knew and invited her along, and she sort of bowled over with things we offer, and an interesting thing she said, that there's so much information we have, and that Parent Carer Forum, groups like that, we should be linking more to share information on things. And I think now we've got Jodie. This sounds as if we couldn't do it before, but
Can I stop recording now?
Oh, yeah. That are you?
No, go on.
Oh, no. So now we have the capacity, because we've grown ourselves so well and so sort of stably. Now we've got that capacity, we can do more link-ups with other groups, and Faye and Nikki, I'm sure, have got contacts with lots of others that we can perhaps come together to share information and advice. I don't want to detract from what wonderful stuff we're doing. But
I was actually thinking when I was listening to the presentations, is the Neuromuscular Centre in Winsford are going through exactly what you're going through, because they have children who have muscular dystrophy and neurological diseases, who at one time had a very short life expectancy, but now medical care and drugs have improved so much that they're living much longer lives. So actually they've got the same decisions to make as you. They've got the same concerns, the same drive to make that younger person as independent as possible, yet protect them. And it's a very, very difficult dynamic. So at some point it would be really useful to kind of connect with them and share information.
And what you said about how important it is about the lasting power of attorney for the health and well-being side, everybody thinks about the financial side. It's a big shock and it's not a nice thing to talk about, but during COVID, lots and lots of people had NDR decisions made because there was nothing in place. And the thought of somebody, that happening to my son, because
he doesn't have the same value as other people. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was a big shock.
Yes,
It really was. So, and we don't know if it'll happen again.
No.
So I don't want to be in that.
No.
Position.
I have an LPA in place. Yeah. So I think as kind of responsible adults, we should all have them in place for ourselves, and definitely if there's a possibility of your sons and daughters having them, then they should be in place. Once they're in place, you can forget about them. You hopefully will never have to use it, but when you need it, boy, do you need it.
Yeah. And that was kind of what we were talking about, is, you know, there's lots of things that we in our heads, it's like, what's going to happen. So making a plan for things is kind of that's what we want.
Yes.
And making people aware, you know, that with the members of the North West Care Co-Operative now, we want to help them as well realise that these decisions need to be made, and they need to make the plans, and they need to, but without it being...
It's the overwhelming bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what you need to be careful of, because you just think...
And you are, the parent partnership thing, you do get lots and lots of this sort of information, up to the age of 25, when you're classed as a parent, for parent partnership, because you're not classed that once they're over 25, even though you still are, but no, they're not interested in them each 25, and you do get absolutely loads and loads and loads of information. And yes, in your caring role, it's having the stamina sometimes and just taking time to look at it, because you're already busy enough with what you're doing.
You're kind of busy with the day job, aren't you, without having to take on all this extra stuff. And it's amazing how your parents, when it suits professionals and local authorities,
and at other times,
and other times it doesn't suit, and therefore they're not interested. But it's very weird.
And it's the same whenever we need a voice, because you're exhausted with your task. So that these meetings will come along saying, oh, they're going to change this, you need to make sure you've got your view in place. but people don't turn up, and people are, oh, well, that means that they're all right with it. Well, it isn't. It's because they're exhausted.
Yeah.
And they don't want to
Or-
go to
or
a
they
meeting
can't
at
leave
6
somebody
o'clock.
That's it, and
on
they
their own,
they
or-
can't
yeah,
go and do it.
yeah. But together you've got such a strong voice.
Yeah.
And it's not acceptable. A lot of what's going on is not acceptable. And the louder your voice is, then the more chance that's being heard. But also it's getting on board organisations that will support you and actually lobby on your behalf. So yes, there's just such potential for this group. There really is.
So Mary doesn't like me name dropping, but I've had a conversation last with our local MP, who we were talking about the benefit changes, and that was something that Janet and I discussed when I went to do some work there. So he's really keen to kind of hear your voice, your views, not about I don't agree with it, about how is this actually going to affect, us and our life. So there you go. That's another thing.
Yes, I've already done some work on that with James. So that's going to another organisation we're involved with, which is Live. James is on the social action group there called Our Chatter Matters. So we're putting views together there to go to whoever we're going to end up, because it's not a consultation document that changes in benefit. They've not put it out to consultation. So it's a right to your MP type
Yes, that's
thing.
exactly what he was saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry Sarah, we've bombarded you with what you've got to go and do as a
I
as a
thought I was
mum.
doing really well.
But you are, and you've got us here, haven't you, to help you along
But
with
so
that.
now what we can tell you is what we can do.
Right.
So part
Yeah.
of moving forward, it's the 4 areas that the lady spoke about earlier, which is the health and the well-being. It's the pastoral support advocacy, the finance, which in whichever way we will work that out, but we're planning that, we're actively working on it, and it's the housing, which is the work that Janet's done. So if I go to my next slide, our starting point. Okay, so I've obviously, in my work as a careers advisor, I have to go and have conversations with young people with additional needs about the future. Take a cake if you want a cake.
I might go along the way. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So obviously I've been taught a certain way to go and have these conversations and to talk about the future. So I thought, how can I adapt that for our members? And it's been really, really useful because obviously Barry and I have been on a bit of a journey, haven't we?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about your journey?
Yeah.
Do you want to come and sit with me so they can see you?
No.
Okay, so one of the reasons that I am so passionate about doing this part of my job is because Sue was one of the original members that started it, and obviously we've been through this and we've got real life experience, haven't
Yes.
we?
Right.
So I feel like I kind of helped Hannah through that.
You did.
I'll let Barry decide that himself.
You did.
And again, it's that Sue always had a plan. She always knew what was going to happen, and we
And
do.
then she told me about it.
And you'd be reading a book somewhere. So yes, Sue always had a plan, and if we're saying to kids in school, plan for your career, I think we need to be planning for the future, moving forward when we're gone. So if I really quickly show you, this is what I use. It's a gingerbread. So we talk about now and then. So I've done this with 2 of our members. This, you can have one either side of the table. You won't be able to read it because it's completely my scribble. So that's just me recording their voice. So when I'm asking them, and what I've got to be really, really clear about is at this stage, it is just their voice. It's their thoughts, it's their feelings, it's how they feel about themselves and these different areas. So it's motivation. What's your motivation? What do you want in the future? What are you looking forward to? How do you see yourself in the future? And I think with Hannah, I said, imagine if you're 60. What do you want for that? And so she told me, and I did the same with James. Now normally I don't like to have parents or teachers or any other staff around me because I want it to be their thoughts and their feelings. So we do the motivation, we do decision making. So how do you go through making a decision? If you're going to go to the shop and you're going to buy some crisps, which crisps are you going to buy? Well, I'll buy salt and vinegar because I know I like that. So you always choose a familiar thing. So it's things like that. It's getting them to think about, what decisions do I have to make in my life? How do I make them? Who helps me with them? What support have I got? So that's that bit. Self-awareness is about skills and qualities. What am I good at? What do I like? Opportunity awareness is kind of based around careers, but it's about, do you know what's out there? So for example, Hannah in a volunteering, you know, she's brilliant at gardening. Well, she used to be, she doesn't do too much now, does she? So, you know, let's get her doing something that grows it. Let's do this, let's do the other. What's out there? What's the purpose of it? What are you doing it for? Actually, if you're really enjoying this and you're really good at it, why don't we go and see if we can make this into paid employment? Transition is about when things change. So how do you deal with transition? When's it happened in the past? Well, what was that like? And what did it feel like? What worked for you? What didn't work for you? So that's the main kind of careers advice that I would do. So obviously I've adapted that. And then I've used the 4 areas of need, which were on that other one. So pastoral support, financial, medical and housing. So this one is a young man's, so from that scribble there, that's a young man's next stage. So that's then from that scribble, that's how I prepare it in a document. And then from there we have like an action plan of what are we going to do next, so what needs to be done. So the first thing might be, actually we need to get power of attorney in place. Or, you know, the conversation might have started about, well, that person decided that when they die, they want to be cremated and they want to be thrown in the River Dee, scattered in the River Dee. So that's then started that conversation. So maybe that's going to be the next part, because if they've brought that up, that's important to them. So that's the first kind of step of moving forward. The way I see it is that getting their thoughts, their views, what do they want? But then the second part of that comes along, and Barry and I have worked on a piece of work. I've got the unwritten one, you've got the written one. So do you want to explain what happened on Wednesday when we looked at them together?
Yes, I have one of those which Jodie did with Hannah. I haven't seen it, I didn't know anything about it. And I've done mine, which is this thing here. And my view of Hannah and what she needs for the future, my concerns, my wishes, my hopes, etc. And when I gave this to Jodie, she read mine, and then I read Hannah's version of this, they were just like perfectly connected. So my view, it made me feel really good, but my view of Hannah and her needs for the future were also hers. Now obviously we've talked about all of this, so it might be that I've imparted my concerns and worries and hopes, and she's taken those on board. But Hannah has her own mind as well, so it was nice to think that we are in accord about the future. Because if you're not, then it falls apart at some stage, doesn't it? So the exercise has been really beneficial, because we both know we're singing from the same hymn sheet, as it were. Yeah.
Now, one of the reasons that has happened is because you and Hannah are very, very clear, and you've done loads and loads of work. So, you know, you've talked about wills, you've organised funerals, you've done all that, because obviously you were in that situation where you had to. So that, and we have to remember that Hannah's a little bit older as well.
Yes.
She wouldn't like me saying that.
No, she's 44 now. Just
Not that old though.
It's very young. You know, I mean, we can have conversations about retirement and things with Hannah because she's that bit older. So then the other member that I worked with, he's a little bit younger, so he's not in the position that Hannah's in, where he doesn't go to work, he doesn't live independently. Hannah doesn't live independently, does she?
Not totally, no.
No.
Semi-independent.
So she lives with you most of the time. She has her own flat that she would say she lives in independently, but actually without Dad she wouldn't live in that flat independently. You know, you're there at the end of the phone. You're the one who drives her back into and makes sure she's got eggs in for her breakfast and all of those kind of things. And that's, you know, we really want to empower them to think that they're being independent, but we've got to remember that that's only with all of this support that we're giving them. So take that support away, what have we got? We've got, you know, kids in crisis, if you like. So the other young man, he's a little bit younger. He lives at home with his parents. He does lots and lots of different activities, but doesn't do anything that's paid employment. So when that supporting member looked at the action plan, they thought...
Sorry, I was thinking of something else.
No, it's all right, it's Janet's turn.
Janet's turn, good.
So I would say I was impressed that James felt that he could be so independent with these things. I thought that's marvellous, you know, to have that feeling of I can do all these things, and you have to be very careful not to be negative about that. But I'm his mum, and I know that he can't do all those things that he thinks he can do, and so you've got to be realistic about it. I mean, it's a little bit as a comparison. I always remember them saying about when I went through the housing issue, be careful when you're doing it, the housing, talking about their wishes and everything with housing, because you have to be realistic with them. Because as we said at the beginning, when there was that wonderful picture of a castle or whatever, that's where they'd say they want to live. And we don't want to. And with James it would be the same thing, where he says, oh yes, I can do that, I can do my own banking and I can do my own, and without support he just wouldn't be able to.
So the second part would be like Barry's done. So Barry's gone away and answered those points yourself, haven't you? You've gone from a parent's point of view. Do you want to share any of them, what you've said?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yes. I'll read a couple of the bits because they sort of introduce where I'm up to, really. Sue died in September 23, and since she's passed, Hannah and I have supported each other through the pain and the grief of all of that. So now as a single parent, I've become acutely aware of the need for planning. We always were aware of it. I mean, since Hannah was born, we were aware of it, but we were young, so our mortality didn't connect, you know, it didn't sort of push itself upon us, but I'm very aware of that now. And it was Susan's death that really made me wake up and smell the coffee, because, you know, it's a thin line between now Hannah being completely on her own and not, and it's just whether I'm still here or not. So that's what's happened, and I went under these headings, and I had a conversation with a social worker from Vale Royal Adult Social Care team, and it really left me feeling quite isolated, like they weren't there. I was expecting to have a conversation with an adult who was a professional, who understood precisely where I was at and what they could do to help me to deal with the future. And it wasn't that. What she wanted was for me to put down my thoughts and ideas and arrangements that I'd made and send them to her for their file. So it didn't really assist, except afterwards, in retrospect, I feel that it actually focused me a little more than I was. I was a bit floundering, you know, wondering how to go about this. So I'll read the headings. Planning for the future when I'm no longer here. I've written a section on family circumstances because we don't have much of a family left anymore. So there's myself, her dad. She has an aunt who lives in Eastbourne, a cousin, my sister-in-law's son, who is 28 and setting off towards married life and a mortgage and all of that. So he's busy, he's a busy boy. And he would be willing, and we get on very well, all of us. But they're a long way away, you know, so it's not an immediate response like 20 minutes down the road or an hour away by car. It's like a big thing, I think, to expect people at that distance to be more than a remote connection. I have a son who wants nothing more to do with his sister's future. So that's the family circumstances. So when I go, she's going to be quite isolated, I think, from family. I've put a section about Hannah's medical background, just a summary, because it's all on record. So it's just my view of her disabilities, her challenges, how they affect her daily life, and how she meets them. You know, so that's the next thing I did. Housing. I've written about her current housing situation. She co-owns a flat with a housing association, 2-bed flat in Northwich, close to the centre. She can walk to and from work. She doesn't. She lets me take her to and from work in the car, and we go for coffee afterwards and stuff. So it's quite a nice arrangement. And she's very happy there. And we've worked quite a lot over the last couple of years on sort of future-proofing her accommodation. She's just had the bathroom, which was quite old, changed to a modern shower room, because we were both concerned when we discussed it about having to fall, stepping in and out of a bath when things are wet, and her balance issues are a problem, and spatial judgment is a bit of a problem. So now the new shower's in, it's a sliding door. She steps over a very shallow threshold into the shower, closes it behind her, and is secure. That sort of thing. She had a new kitchen 2019, just as the outbreak of COVID. It was designed and fitted so that everything has a place and she can find everything, and it's well organised and it's safe, you know, and she's got everything she needs for food preparation, cooking, keeping it clean, tidy and safe for her use. So those are the sorts of things we've been doing, as well as redecorating and, you know, making it a pleasant, clean, bright space to be in. But I know, like you, that is not how it's going to be when I'm not here, because she needs more than that. And my view is she needs to have some support. Supported living would be my initial thought, which I've written down here. And I've had conversations with people. She is on the waiting list for James House, which is in Woodheath, which is run by Making Space. Purpose-built, modern, in Woodheath, close to the centre, so she can get to and from work when I'm not here, or even before I go. It would be nice to think that she was settled in such a place. We have been to view a flat there that was available at the time. I think it was earmarked for somebody, and I think it is a little bit of the crisis thing, who needs it most at this moment. So Hannah will be on the waiting list for some considerable time, I would imagine. But she liked the flats, she liked the situation. They have a courtyard in the centre with a garden, which they've been doing up recently, where the residents can work together and so on. So it's a nice situation. As I say, she's got the local amenities that she's used to, plus work. So that sort of a situation would be good. When I spoke to Julie Escort, the social worker who came to visit me, she mentioned Anderton Place in Kingsmead, and I think that would be another good situation for Hannah. Within a community where she has contact every day with people, where they see her coming and going and have a word, you know, that sort of thing. I have a fear of isolation for Hannah. And I think it was driven home to me when COVID hit. We said, come home and stay with us. We don't want you isolated in this situation. And she did. And I know a number of people whose confidence and self-belief and social skills have suffered through that period. And I could imagine, you know, Hannah would be at home in her flat and see hardly anybody unless she was going to work. You know? She does have a busy week, so she does see people, and she's got Jodie, which is wonderful. But I do concern myself with that. It is a worry that I have. So it is about where she is, where I think it will be good for her to be in the future. Her finances, I've just listed the kind of income streams that come in to her, and then financial management, and I mentioned budget safe. So I've written that down here. Her employment, I put that down, her shifts. Her will, she rewrote her will recently after her mum died. She talked about that. She thought it was a good idea. And when we got to section 2 of the will, it said funeral wishes. And she changed her mind, just as her mum did. When Sue was ill, we talked about afterwards, if it occurred. And, excuse me.
But we're looking at you, it doesn't help, does it?
I'm just glad the professionals have gone, I feel.
Yeah, well, that's why I got rid of them.
So,
do you want a coffee? I'll make a coffee while you...
thanks. Sue decided,
Sorry.
yeah,
That was my bag.
that she wanted her ashes scattered in Cumbria at this particular time, which she asked me to do, and I said I would. So Hannah has decided that instead of her ashes being scattered in the Garden of Remembrance locally or with her grandparents, and where her mum was originally going to be, at St Oswald's Church in Pever, but she'd like her ashes to go with her mum. So, for a time, well, it's unlikely I'm going to be here, so who is going to do this? The family's situation is, as I've explained briefly, how do I get that done? So I understood her wishes and I wrote them up, and we talked long and hard about it. We go and visit the town like once every 4 or 5 weeks. So I contacted people like the Langdale and Ambleside Mountain Rescue Team. Did they do this? Would they do it for somebody? We do it sometimes. When do you want us to do it? And I said, I have no idea. Maybe 40 years? They're a charitable organisation. Funded by the public, aren't they? So they don't even know that they're going to be there. Or what the situation will be. So I contacted the local church in Ambleside, spoke briefly to them, but realised that what I was asking was really a bit impossible. Because he has parishioners, many of them will be fell walkers because they live in that area. And I'm sure somebody, so I spoke to somebody at St John's Church in Winsford, who was always there, Isabel. And I just said to her, as we stood at the door welcoming people into this group that Hannah belongs to, I've got this problem. What would you do? And she said, if it was me and I was asked to scatter ashes on behalf of somebody, I would love to do it. I would feel it was an honour and privilege. Which made me feel quite good about it. You know, there are people out there who would take this on board, even though they don't know you or they don't know your child. And so I said to Hannah, we need to do a prepaid funeral. So we went to the Co-op. I'm glad that was done. I'm talking about the rivals. And we went to Winsford, made an appointment, and we had a chat about Hannah's wishes, direct cremation, and her ashes to be scattered at Luffield Town. At Lily Town and Luffield Fair. No problem. So I'm talking about the issue of getting the ashes to whoever is going to do with it. And she said, well, we have an office, we have a care home in Kendal, which is just down the road from Ambleside. So we will transport the ashes to them, and one of the staff there will take the ashes to Luffield Fair and scatter them on Lily Town. And it was like, I'd been scratching my head thinking, how am I going to arrange this? And the Co-op just came up trumps. So there was my dividend for the future. So that was great. So I spoke to the people at the office in Kendal, and the lady I spoke to knows Lily Town, because she passes it every week when she goes for a walk on Luffield. So it sort of all came together, and that was a big headache. I just didn't know how I was going to fulfil that wish. I was going to arrange it, but it seems to be sorted. So I also wanted to know that whoever, because it might not be that lady who knows Lily Town, whoever is working there will be able to find it and find a place where the ashes are to be scattered. So I put a package together, which is basically the section of the OS map, with a little diagram from the car park in the centre of Ambleside to it. And then I've written, make sure I read the right bit. These are wishes. I've written a little note from Hannah to where I was doing it. My name is Hannah Sandwich, and I set out below what I would like to happen when I'm gone. And it's got the grid reference, elevation, and what 3 words. So you know exactly the spot where sewers started. And then just directions from the car park to the town. And this is just Hannah's funeral wishes and arrangements. And these are going to be lodged with, one with her will at the solicitors, one with the Co-op funeral care people, and it goes on their central database. So whatever answers are, people can just report and go and find out what she wants. And I'll send one to her aunt for safety. Because that has always been the issue for me. I can write all this stuff down and have all these thoughts and ideas, but unless other people who are going to be around when I'm not know about them, nothing's going to happen, is it? So that's what I've been doing.
You've been very busy, and I'm sorry that the urns are just warming up again. That's why they're very noisy, and why I've got a lukewarm one. I didn't want to give you that one.
So I think there we are is really what you've mentioned there is what I found when I talked to all these courses and things before, is that we sit down and we talk about the legal stuff, the financial stuff, and everybody can come up with, to some extent, a solution. It's the practical stuff that you think that who on earth is going to do that when I'm not there to actually do the practical stuff is what's difficult. And we're in a very similar situation in that we are very isolated. So some people are very lucky, they've got family around them, they're all very, very willing to take on these roles. Some of them, as we did as a family when my mum was getting older, without unspoken word, we all took on our own little roles in the family of going forward with my mum. And people will say to you that if you ask for help, quite often people feel very, very honoured that you've asked them to do it. But it's asking for that help, and it's knowing that there is anybody that wants to do it.
So if we go back to this, and that is, that's exactly why this was the first thing that I wanted to work on out of, all of those things, because this is really, I've gone too far. This is really important for me, to make sure that you know that all of these things are going to be carried out, and there's somebody kind of making sure that this is happening. So if we go back to I've gone to the wrong one, go back to the next one, we go to the 4 areas, and again, this is really, really brand new, we're just starting. So that's my starting point, is that action plan. So how do they feel, what do they want? What do you feel, what do you want? Let's then combine that together, and then let's work on those different things. So on your 4 areas, you've got health and well-being. So the hospital passport, Rick's was brilliant the other day, it was like right by his front door.
Yeah, look, I can't take any credit for that. It's
Well done, Faye.
really. So
But this is like we will do all this online because we don't really print things out anymore. But this will be for each person, a part of the moving forward will be this document that I will make sure is filled out. I'll make sure that you've given me the right information, not just their information, and that we keep using it. And that was brilliant for Rick to just have it by his front door. What a fab idea.
Well, it's Roland's lodge, so we did it together, so.
Like Hannah's,
all the credit.
we've done Hannah's, but we don't know where it is. I think it's at the doctor's.
So that's absolutely great. The next step after that would be, and it's wonderful, that's been around for quite a long time, but we need to put pressure on that they're actually looked at when they get to the hospital.
Yes. I went to
as an organisation.
a conference, a learning disability health conference at Chester a few weeks ago, and they're kind of talking about how, this is what people want, how are we going to do that? The other thing, so obviously finance and the pastoral wellbeing, there's a thing called a vocational profile, which is this. So this is a county, the Cheshire County thing, that is basically all about you. So particularly people that want to go into whatever kind of employment, voluntary, paid employment. This has got, so if people were kind of applying for a job, this would be sent with them so that that employer could see all of the help and support and the reasonable adjustments they needed. So again, that's something that, as a starting point, we work through that and we say, well, what do you need support with? Let's put that support in place. And then the finance thing was one that had kind of stumped me, and I've asked questions today about the finance, haven't I? Because I don't know how, I can't get my head around how that's going to work, but it will work in some way because I'll make it happen. But there's lots of tools that we can use to let our principal members be supported with what they're doing, you know, with little workshops, little get-togethers, let's do a thing on banking, let's do the, you know, there's things that we can be doing to kind of assess where they're up to. If they're saying, yeah, I can do it, all right, show me. And then we'll put the things in place. And then Janet's housing is here. So there's 20 pages of this, and I've got all the cut out little pictures and things. So this is another way. So when we come to have that conversation about housing, that work's already there. So it's like an initial conversation, then let's involve you guys as supporting members, then let's see where the need is, then let's do this to prove the need, if you like, and then let's work on what they need to make it better.
Mhm.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Are you all shattered now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's added another sort of really positive sort of push to all this, I think, because I think, Faye, you've been working so much to get things moving, but your time has been taken with lots of other stuff, and yet you've done a big initial drive and got people's opinions, and the support plans have grown to include some of the bits about housing and things. So it's great that we've taken that, and well, I haven't, but it has been taken and grown, and I think that's really useful.
I think there are other positives as well, because when James had sat with Jodie and done this, I know, because he's been very low recently, he felt better because we talked about it.
Yeah. And he felt listened to, and he felt like, you know, somebody's listening to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say something else then, but it's really gone.
Sorry.
No, I think it was great, Jodie, to have all these people around today, and it's fabulous that it's going to be shared. Well, I suppose shared if Janet and Barry are happy with, and Hannah and James are happy with things being shared on here. It's an interesting thought as to how we move forward when we've got all the information, and that's one of the tricky bits about making sure that those people who are saying what a great idea this moving forward, I want to be part of it. It's the tricky bit then for the legal bit to how you set up, how Rod and I would set up a contract with North West Care Co-op that after we're gone, and it is in our letter of wishes, after we're gone, this extra payment from our finances will be paid to North West Care Co-op to offer this additional support, because it's something entirely separate from your direct payment.
Yeah.
That it's a huge way, but we've got such a good way forward.
See, I don't know any side of that side. I've kept away from that. What I've done is what can we practically do? And then, so this would be, you know, it's easy with us because I'm Hannah's PA. So obviously, as part of Hannah's on a Saturday morning, we spent half an hour doing that. So that worked. You know, I popped over to see James, and I think this in the initial bit, putting all this in place is just kind of, that's part of my role, and you know, I'll do that as and when. But then you know, going and doing travel training, going through the passports, going to the hospital appointments and things, it's going to be completely different, isn't it? So
it's exciting.
There's a need, and I think, you know, we've got the right people kind of around the table, haven't we?
Yeah.
It is definitely then that's the harder bit from the logistics point of view. Like Mary's saying, is how North West Care Co-Operative set up a service to cover the financial side of it, because supported banking, it is brilliant what they provide, but there's not really support when the bill comes to more than the budget does. It goes back to the person to say you've gone over. Some of our members, principals, would be able to deal with that, but others, it causes a great deal of anxiety.
Yeah.
I'm going to go.
Okay.
You can carry on your discussions.
Thank you very much for
You'll
your
have a bit of
input.
a,
Yeah,
bit of
thank
a
you.
gooseberry.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much for coming
You're
along.
welcome. It's lovely to meet you all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Do you want to take your cake with you?
No, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
So
I'm going to shoot while I've got